Welcome to This Explainer. Today, we're going to absolutely flip the script on everything you thought you knew about artificial intelligence. We are diving into a genuinely fascinating source, a book called The Eye of the Master, A Social History of Artificial Intelligence by Matteo Pasquinelli. Our goal here? We're stripping away the buzzwords, the corporate hype, and, all those sci-fi tropes to look at the actual grounded history of where algorithms really come from. So get ready to have your perspective entirely shifted, because the story of AI isn't just about microchips or lines of code. It's actually a story about us, about human beings.
Okay, let's dive right into it. Part 1. The Great AI Myth. We are constantly bombarded with narratives about where tech is heading, right? But to really understand it, we have to stop and ask, what exactly is artificial intelligence? I mean, your mind probably jumps straight to Hollywood, a Terminator-style supercomputer plotting our doom with a cold, metal brain thinking its own independent thoughts. We are totally sold this idea that AI is this quest to literally build an artificial mind. But what if I told you that assumption completely misses how these systems are actually designed, built, and deployed out in the real world?
And that brings us to a massive aha moment. Take a look at this comparison. Over on the left, we've got the dominant corporate propaganda, this pervasive myth that AI is just imitating the biological brain. But look at the reality on the right. As Pasquinelli argues in our source material, AI is actually the imitation of the division of labor and social relations. The inner code of AI doesn't come from the deep physiology of your neural pathways. No, it comes from capturing, tracking, and automating collective human behavior. AI is not some independent brain in a jar. It's a mirror. It's reflecting the massive social intelligence that we all constantly generate through our everyday work and actions.
Which brings us to Part 2, the intelligence of labor. We usually tend to separate manual labor from mental labor, right? But let's look at the modern Trojan horse of AI, the self-driving car. For decades, society kind of looked down on driving a truck as mere manual labor, a task needing muscle more than mind. But the quest to automate it has revealed a stunning paradox. Driving is intensely cognitive. It is highly rule-based. It requires split-second ethical decisions, incredible spatial awareness, and a really deep understanding of social cues from other drivers on the road. The only reason a machine learning algorithm can be trained to drive is precisely because the act of driving is a deeply intellectual, logical activity. The algorithm isn't magically generating new intelligence. It is just mapping the incredible intelligence that's already there in the human driver.
And honestly, this concept isn't even new. Look at this brilliant quote from the philosopher Antonio Gramsci, all the way back in 1932. He says, "All human beings are intellectuals. Homo faber cannot be separated from Homo sapiens." Now, Homo faber basically means man the maker, and Homo sapiens means man the thinker. Gramsci is emphasizing that there's really no such thing as a non-intellectual. Every single piece of so-called manual labor contains intricate logic, knowledge, and problem-solving skills. And this right here is exactly what AI seeks to capture, encode, and ultimately commodify. AI literally needs our inherent intelligence just to function.
Moving on to Part 3, algorithms before computers.
So, that begs the question, where did algorithms actually come from? Well, we have to go back to a time way before electricity was even a thing. This brilliantly illustrates it. It's the diagram for the Agni Ayana fire altar, which is an ancient Hindu ritual from 800 BC. The goal of the ritual was to symbolically recompose a god by building an altar in the exact shape of a falcon. But they weren't just slapping mud bricks together randomly. It was a rigorous, highly structured process. Believe it or not, this is a primordial example of an algorithm. It's a step-by-step procedure designed to solve a problem while making the absolute best use of the given resources.
Let's actually break down this bricklaying process, because it takes a really high-tech word like algorithm and grounds it right in the physical mud. The workers had to follow these strict, recursive steps, reciting specific mantras, laying exactly 1,000 bricks with extreme precision, and constructing 5 layers in total. The really incredible part? Every single layer had to maintain the exact same total area, but use a completely different geometric configuration of bricks. Doing this required complex heuristic techniques of incremental approximation, which, is basically just a fancy way of saying highly structured trial and error math. And get this, that is the exact same foundational logic used in modern error correction algorithms in AI today. The algorithm wasn't born in a Silicon Valley lab. It was born in physical labor and social ritual thousands of years ago.
As societies grew, algorithms naturally evolved through commercial necessity. Just look at this amazing 1503 illustration showing the allegory of arithmetic. It depicts this historic dispute between the abacists, who used Roman numerals in the abacus, and the algorists, who were adopting the brand new Hindu-Arabic decimal system. Actually, fun fact, the term algorithm itself comes from the Latinization of the 9th century Persian scholar al-Khwarizmi. So algorithms became these step-by-step rules for merchants on paper, helping them handle really large, complex commercial transactions. It was the sheer need to control capital and resources that drove the abstraction of mathematics.
Let's move to the timeline and see how this all builds, because you can actually trace a direct line right across history, from the 3800 BCE Babylonian censuses used to manage populations, to al-Khwarizmi's rules of calculation in 825 CE, right into the 1800s with Charles Babbage's mechanical division of labor, and all the way up to Alan Turing and Boolean logic in 1938. Algorithms haven't just popped into existence out of nowhere. They have always been cultural tools of social management, quantification, and problem-solving across basically all civilizational epochs. They are quite literally how human beings organize large-scale societies.
All right, part 4, mechanizing the mind. So how did those physical, social rules actually turn into mechanical gears? Like, how did human labor get abstracted into a machine that could, quote-unquote, think? Well, take a look at historian Peter Damero's diagram here on abstraction. I know it looks a bit complex, but the core idea is honestly beautiful. It shows that abstract mental models aren't born in a vacuum inside some solitary genius's head. They actually emerge from human minds repeatedly interacting with physical tools. When a worker uses a tool to solve a problem over and over and over, that physical action gets internalized into a mental model, which then leads to a higher level of mathematical abstraction. Labor is the engine that actually generates scientific knowledge. And this brings us back to the recurring motif of our explainer today, the eye of the master. Back in the late 1700s, Gaspar du Prony needed to calculate these massive logarithmic tables, so he divided the math labor among 3 groups of human clerks, basically treating them just like an assembly line. Decades later, Charles Babbage looked at that exact same social division of labor and literally built it into metal gears to create the difference engine, the very first computer prototype. And later on, Taylorism applied the master's eye, using cameras to film and mathematically optimize every tiny micro movement of a factory worker. So early computers didn't imitate biological brains at all. They explicitly imitated the factory floor and the division of human labor.
Now, what's really fascinating about this is how nakedly this hierarchy was admitted by the actual founders of computing. Check out this quote from Alan Turing, the famous pioneer of computer science, speaking back in 1947 about early computers. The masters will plan out instruction tables. The servants will feed it with cards. The servants will take the place of limbs. Turing's vision of computation was fundamentally rooted in a hierarchical colonial master-servant dynamic. I mean, the architecture of computation was designed from the ground up to orchestrate labor, placing the machine in the role of the master and the human in the role of the servant.
And that takes us to our final section, part 5, the labor theory of AI.
So, bringing all these historical clues together, from ancient mud bricks in 800 BCE to 19th century factory gears to Alan Turing's pretty stark admissions, we arrive at an absolutely crucial point, the labor theory of automation. This theory states that the design of intelligent machines emerges by imitating, capturing, and eventually replacing the collective diagram of human labor. Algorithms do not think for themselves. They possess literally zero independent consciousness. They merely reflect the massive collective social intelligence that they've extracted from all of us. When you use an AI to generate an image or translate text, you aren't talking to some synthetic magical brain. You are interacting with the statistical aggregation of millions of human artists and writers whose labor was scraped and encoded.
And this extraction of labor, it isn't just a thing of the past. It's happening right now, completely out of sight. Over on the left is the Silicon Valley illusion, autonomous AI just seamlessly running itself. But on the right is the darker reality, ghost workers. To make AI look like magic, tech companies rely on a massive, invisible army of underpaid workers, largely located in the global south. These human workers spend their days manually filtering toxic content, tagging images, and correcting data just to train the algorithms. The machine isn't autonomous at all. The human labor is just hidden away behind the curtain to preserve the illusion of a superintelligence.
Which leaves us with a pretty profound realization, and a question that I really want to leave you with today. If AI is not a magical brain, but simply the automation of collective human labor, whose labor is it really replacing? And who exactly is the new master? I encourage you to look at your own job through the lens of Alan Turing's blueprint. Are you the master planning the tables, or are you being relegated to the servant feeding the machine? The eye of the master hasn't disappeared, you guys. It's simply evolved into the algorithms that govern our digital lives today. Thank you so much for joining me in this explainer. I really hope this new perspective empowers you the next time you hear the words artificial intelligence.